Welcome, everyone, to Celebrity Josh. I am here with Charlie Nadler, who's based in Boston. He's a writer, comedian, and entrepreneur who co-founded an early-stage startup in the entertainment space. And we're going to talk to him about those exciting projects. Welcome, Charlie.
Thanks, Celebrity Josh. Good to be here, man. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm staying with my parents, and that's not awkward at all.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So, just for those of you who are, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do one little thing here. Hold on. I'm going to put my phone on night mode. So that means I won't be disturbed now with every notification from Instagram. These are the things we do on the fly with technology. We're adapting. So for those of you, just to let everybody know, this is a video call we're doing in Skype. So there's a video on YouTube, and if you can see me, that's probably what you're watching. And if you can't see me and you're just listening to this, it's because you're listening to a podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts, which is pretty exciting. Doesn't that make me more legit to be like a podcast?
Two verticals at once, man. That's like some next level type creativity.
Yeah, I know. It's multi-purpose. It's sort of like, you do one thing, but if you can put it, like as Gary Vee would say, like take your content and put it into different places, so you're being more efficient, you're hitting more people. But also, I think it's just got a bit more cred. Like, anybody can upload a video to YouTube, but to have a podcast, well, anybody could do that as well. But, it takes a bit more work. You got to submit the file to Apple and get it approved or whatever it is. It's very hard. It's very, very difficult, very elitist.
Yeah, totally. I feel elite.
Thanks. Yes, this is your ticket. You were just telling me that you had some friends. By the way, everybody, what's the date? Is it May 6th?
May 6th.
Okay, Wednesday, May 6th. Okay, I like to say that just, so people know when this is recorded, because I find that everything now is kind of related to the pandemic, so it's kind of pertinent. Like if this was before the pandemic, people, like if we were playing an old interview, it'd be like, why is nobody mentioning the pandemic? Or it's like, if it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, you'd be like, but now it's like, okay, so we're like a couple of months into it. You were saying you've been locked down for a couple of months. So that's why, we're kind of in still nervous state, but kind of like, we don't care anymore state, I think is the situation.
Exactly. Complacent state.
The complacent state. Yes. Okay. So, well, I have a question quick, because I can see in the background there you've got like a microphone. It actually looks like a mic at a comedy club. Are you doing like stand-up comedy in your room there?
So that is my little portable comedy show there. I've got an amp and a stand and a mic. I use that for if I do like really small shows locally, just to like set up shop. But I kind of, as a comic, I just feel like it's good to have the hardware, and I'll just mess around on it periodically. I shot a sketch where I pretended I was in Madison Square Garden, and I did cutaways to like arena shots and stuff like that during like when the pandemic first started.
That's cool. What was the premise of the sketch?
It was just called Torona, and basically it was like I was at Madison Square Garden and I did 2 minutes of material, like stand up, and with that board in the background, I don't know if you can see it, and then just like really tight shots, and then just like cut away to a lot of stock footage of people going crazy and laughing, and just did all the arena edits, and just sort of made it like this ridiculous thing that I was at MSG.
Yeah, I like that, because that's what you got to do now, because I find that's, and that's what I'm wondering, because you were just mentioning that people are doing comedy like Zoom calls now, but the main thing, I mean, we could easily just stand in front of our phone and tell a joke, but it doesn't really work. That's why people do it in comedy clubs, so you can have that interaction and the laughter. And so you kind of need to put in a fake laugh track or something. And so how are these Zoom calls going? Like, are people, like, can you hear people laughing as people are telling a joke?
Yeah, so people are doing them it depends on how big the crowd is. I think they're designated, like it's hard to ask everyone to not be muted, because then you have a lot of background noise. So I think they'll have like, not a laugh track, but they'll have like a designated kind of laughter group to help the comedians with those cues. But then a lot of the people that join, I think, just join on mute if it's a larger show. And That's kind of the best. I mean, there's some Instagram live shows, but those are hard because it's, you can't kind of have that shared audience. It's just you have like a couple people at once. So I think it's much harder for Instagram for that way. But Zoom seems to be working relatively well. People are getting pretty creative with it, and I've seen a lot of creative things just outside of the stand-up format. Like I have a friend that does a cooking show weekly every Saturday night where he has comedians come on and do guest spots on Instagram Live and while he cooks a dish. And so like all these interactive kind of sort of programs are popping up.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because that's the thing. It doesn't have to be straight up stand up. You could, if you're at home, you could do a cooking show. You could do anything. You'd have guests. So much creativity is out there. So maybe I should give a quick, other than my little bio I gave of you. Like, can you introduce yourself? You work at a college. That's your day job, I guess.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be like what you introduce yourself as, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I work at a college during the day. I'm a comedian and writer during the mornings and nights and middle of the night. I've been doing comedy for about 9 years, writing screenplays since college for many, many years. And I founded a joke writing company. And we just launched a platform version of the company for comedians. So it's sort of like Etsy and Fiverr for comedy. So it's like setting up marketplaces for individual comedians to market any kind of comedic services and abilities that they have.
See, that's a pretty cool idea because I know, I don't know, I can imagine people are always like, oh, where can I find a comedian to do whatever? Like, like a stand-up act, I guess, but to host a bar mitzvah or I think you were saying like, the walking tours they could do or.
Yeah, I mean, we have the whole Airbnb experience type vibe for it too. So it's like, it's not just like, booking, a personality like yourself or a stand-up. It's also just any kind of service. Maybe someone, wants sort of a consultant in a certain area and, comedian can provide that work or a walking tour or a cookies, comedy cooking class. I mean.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we're really allowing them to be as creative as they want to be and offer kind of anything that is sort of comes out of their wheelhouse.
Yeah, because years ago I put an ad on Craigslist and I was offering to help people like with speeches or something. And so somebody hired me to sit with him and help him write a best man speech, like that kind of thing. And so, I said, here, write your bad version and then I'll throw in some jokes or whatever. And it was great. And a lot of it was just, my advice was don't put so much pressure on yourself. I'm sure that almost any joke he would write, people would appreciate. And people really do appreciate hearing about themselves. Like, don't feel like this pressure that, oh, I've got to come up with a hilarious joke about marriage and I'm going to read some stock joke off the internet. Nobody needs that. They just want to, if it was literally just the 10 things I like about Charlie or something, or things that you didn't know about Charlie. People are like, oh yeah, that's me. Like people just like to hear about themselves. And, so it was really fun. So I'm sure that's the kind of thing that you could put on that. Because I find that like when I look at, I don't know, I can't remember how I find it, but like when I Google myself or whatever, I can see that one of the most popular things that people search or find is that, or at least on my website or something, is this speech I gave at my dad's retirement party. And so, I filmed that and then so people are always looking because they probably have to give a speech at their dad's retirement party. Like, what do I say or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
A popular thing. So are you originally from Boston then?
I grew up off the Cape. Martha's Vineyard is an island off of Cape Cod in Massachusetts. So that's where I was born and raised.
Wow. I've always heard, I don't know what those places are. I hear them. I feel like were the Kennedys from Martha's Vineyard or?
Yeah, the Kennedys have a compound there. It's where Obama and Bill Clinton used to summer vacation. It's like a very trendy summer place. It's very sleepy in the off season.
Wow, and that's where you grew up?
That's where I grew up. It was a different childhood.
Yeah, that sounds pretty idyllic. Were you like Anna Green Gables running around and playing with sticks and in the woods or whatever?
Yeah, riding my bike around at 7 years old through the neighborhood, like, without much oversight because it was so safe. It was one of those kind of places.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Well, good thing you got out of there. Or are you still sort of around there? Are you still in that area?
Yeah, I'm still in Mass, so it's just a couple hours to the ferry, and it's a boat ride over.
And then and that you were saying you lived in LA for 7 years, or?
Yeah, 8 years in LA, 4 years in New York City, and worked in entertainment for the whole time in LA, and then in New York, still did a bunch of stand up and did that whole grind.
So yeah, you're basically living. Yeah, I thought. Yeah, I was gonna say 8, but I'm like, I thought he said he did comedy for 8 and was there for 7 or whatever it was. And then, yeah, like you're doing my dream life, or like any living in New York, living in LA, working the comedy circuit. Is that something that people should be aspiring to, or was it everything you could have dreamed?
I would say aspire to make content and be funny and entertain people. I don't think you have to work in the business to also do that. I think like working day to day in entertainment is a very stressful, kind of cutthroat, tough industry, kind of like working in, politics or finance or just one of these very like high impact things. So, I worked in a lot of settings where there was a lot of money on the line, a lot of pressure, and a lot of stressed out people, a lot of sad people. Also some great people too, but I think it's definitely the place to go for opportunities. But that said, I think my comedy career has been way better since I left New York and LA in terms of just doing more work on the road. And, there's something to be said for having less of a saturated market to be able to kind of get yourself out there. So I think it's worth doing. I mean, LA is a very fun place to be, and New York's got a lot to offer as well. If you're willing to live in a shoebox and really struggle and be around a lot of angry people.
Yeah, that sounds all right to me. I've realized I don't need space. I don't really care where I'm living. Like I had a condo, and I'm like, oh, I was gonna decorate it and put up paintings and get the finest couch, and I never did any of that because I was like, I don't really care. Like I don't want to be home. The only time I really liked having a room was when I was in university residence, because I knew I was surrounded by friends who could just walk down the hall and see me. So I'd put up posters on the wall. Like that's where they would see it. But in a condo, nobody was visiting me, so I feel like why bother? I guess if I had a wife and kids or something, I don't know. I don't really care about my space, I've decided. So yeah, a small place, angry people sounds good. Because then I can feel better about myself. If they're angry, it's like, well, I don't have to feel bad about being angry because they're angry.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, I can see how it would be hard. Like where, if everybody's an actor and a comic in LA and New York, then you're not going to stand out. But if you go somewhere smaller, then, oh, you're the comedian in town kind of thing could be nice. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what people do. Like, I feel like, Lily Singh made it big, and she's like from Toronto, I guess, and did her YouTubing and then eventually went to LA. So I feel like people could still build a career on YouTube or whatever, wherever they are, and then decide to go to LA or visit if they want.
I think LA is the good stepping stone. Once you kind of get some heat behind you, then you go and, more doors are unlocked, and it's a little bit of an easier landing than building something from scratch.
Yeah, that's what I was worried. I feel like, well, before the pandemic started 2 months ago, I was like, oh, where's my next step? Maybe I'll just go to LA. Some woman there said I could rent a room. I'm like, well, maybe if I just hang out there for a month, at least I'll feel like I'm getting, like I could go sit in the Starbucks and work on my stuff, and maybe I'll meet people. Yeah. The guy I used to work with in Ottawa used to tell me a story about he knew a lawyer that just quit his job and decided to write screenplays and just moved to LA for a bit. And then he met, was it Alanis Morissette at a party and just wound up dating her or something? And he's like, that's the kind of thing that happens in LA. I'm like, is it? But Tom Green is from Ottawa. He's kind of the best. You know him? You know Tom Green?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Sorry?
Household name, Tom Green.
Oh,
grew up on
good.
that guy.
Yeah, okay, good. So he's kind of exactly my age, and he also was doing community cable shows in Ottawa the same time I was doing community cable shows in Toronto. And then I saw him do a live show. He did the New Year's Eve show in Ottawa this year. So went to that, and I talked to him. And yeah, he's sort of, I guess he's in LA now, and he does a podcast. And he was interviewing. He was just having a chat with like Harlan Williams on Instagram. I think he was recording it as a podcast, but he was broadcasting it live on Instagram at the same time. So he's kind of doing the same thing. Hey, somebody just walked past your window. People aren't supposed to be outside. Tell them to social distance and get back inside.
It's my wife.
Oh, all right. Well,
she can come inside if she needs to.
Oh man, you're so lucky to have a wife. See, I was gonna say Tom Green. All his stand-up was about. A lot of it was being nostalgic for kind of the same thing you were just talking about. How, you know, as a kid, you could just go off and disappear for the day, and at that time, if you disappeared, you were gone. You were like in this Narnia where nobody could find you and whatever. You didn't have a cell phone. But he always thought he'd have kids by now, and he didn't. So he's got a girlfriend now or whatever. But he's traveling around. So I feel like he's kind of like almost in the same stage I am now, except much more successful. He was just on Joe Rogan actually. But he married Drew Barrymore. Like he's an Ottawa guy that just went down there and met Drew Barrymore. Like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I don't know what my point is. I think somebody years ago, I think I was like maybe 15 years ago, I was in LA for a couple of weeks staying with a woman who does insurance for movies. So I was working on my screenplay, and then she'd come home after work and look at my notes. And I was like, oh, am I too old to be in LA? She's like, no, people are, it's like, they all act like they're young here. Like until 40, they don't even think of starting to settle down or do anything or whatever, or relationship wise. So I'm like, okay. So I still feel like I could go there and be best friends with Bill Maher or something and just hang out.
Yeah, I mean, I will say one great thing about LA is it's always 75 and sunny and like great weather to like shoot things and create things. Like that is the one for someone like yourself who creates a lot of content. It's a really good place to like have for that, that element.
Yeah, because it's still a bit chilly out right now. I think I did yesterday's interview on the porch, but I'm like, oh, I can't do that today. And I'm already dreading the fall. I'm like, oh God, it's going to be June, July, August. Oh, August starts getting cold. And then I'm like, I can't do it again. I don't know how I used to do it. I guess if you're young and you're surrounded by friends in university, it's like, whatever, it doesn't matter where the weather is. But now I'm like, oh, I'd like to be in, like, I like Miami too, but I feel like Miami's it's not the same thing, right? Like in LA, people would get it when you say, hey, you want to do a podcast or you want to go shoot something.
Yeah.
I don't have a visa to like work in the US, but I don't know. I guess I could just, be there for a month and do my internet stuff anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And people say, I think people were saying, try to get some heat, try to get something going before you go. Like, if I was in Toronto and get my YouTube, but I don't know if I'm ever going to have some heat behind me. I don't, I think it's too late for heat. So I think maybe I should just go and hang out and, I don't have a car. That was always something I was afraid of too. That like, how would I get around? But maybe you just go somewhere and you Uber if you have to, and you just sort of hunker down where you are.
Yeah, I lived in LA way before Uber was launched, and it's way better now that they have Uber. Like, I wish I lived in an Uber LA.
Yeah, I remember I can't remember who it was a few years ago. I mean, the last time I was there, I rented a car for a bit or whatever. But somebody was saying, oh no, people don't do that anymore. Maybe somebody I was talking to on Facebook or something. He's like, yeah, you just Uber. I'm like, really? That's kind of cool. I mean, it must get expensive, but it would also, but I did find it stressful. Like, okay, I'm going to the Chateau Marmont for a bit. Where the heck am I going to park? Like,
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. So I found that stressful. So if there's an easier way to get around, that'd be good. And I guess if I'm not really working or being cast in movies, I don't really have to go anywhere anyways. Like, where am I going? Like to the movie studio? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people just get apartments near where they're working if they get a job out there. Like I used to work in a writer's room, and some of the writers would just like rent an apartment down the street from the studio so they could just walk to work, and they were there all the time anyways.
Yeah, so that becomes kind of your bubble. So like if you're on, on an internet dating site, you'd be like, I'm in Silver City or whatever. That's who you're looking for. You're not looking for somebody in another studio city. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I knew a woman who was a producer, I don't know, like 20 years ago or something. And I think she connected me with a guy who was a writer for The Simpsons. And did I actually meet with him? I feel like we met up at a deli. But now I'm wondering, did we actually meet? I don't know. And I remember talking to her going, I don't know if I'd want to do that. Because I was like, I don't want to just be a name on, like in the credits. I want to be the face. I want to be the comedian kind of thing. And she's like, what are you talking about? He makes more money than you. He's writing for The Simpsons. He's got a great life and a great wife and all this in LA. I'm like, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't turn down a job writing on a show like that. But did you find it satisfying, or was it kind of more like a day job? And then you're like, I still want to be doing the stand-up and getting the glory.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard to balance because the jobs were busy. So stand up is, it was tiring to balance it. But I mean, it was cool. I worked at some companies that did some interesting stuff, and you'd be around famous people and stuff. So, I mean, that part of it was kind of cool, going to movie premieres and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I always sort of understood the counterpoint too of like, there's a nice thing about being just the name and not being hassled. Sometimes it's nice to walk down the street and realize that like people won't stop you and yell weird stuff at you or like, make funny. I mean, there's a lot of like dark side to being that recognizable as well. And I worked for some people who just couldn't go out in public and be left alone, and that was a different kind of sort of hell.
Yeah, I'm sure, but I've done the nobody knows who I am for a long time. I feel like I've had enough of that. So yeah, I mean, I can see how. Who was I talking to or reading about? Something. I can't remember what it was, but I was reading something about this topic. Like, yeah, once you are famous, like whether you can't do like you can't just walk down the street and be anonymous kind of thing. Like if you're Brad Pitt, people are going to go, oh look, that's who it is, right? But that's what I want. That was my dream. Like I thought, I'd love to be like Harrison Ford or Woody Allen. Like if he went to a tiny little coffee shop in the middle of a small town in the middle of nowhere in France or something, he'd walk in and people would know who he was, even though he wouldn't know them and never been there. I'm like, that just seems really cool to me. I think. I guess in my head it would make me feel less alone, like I could go anywhere and people are like, oh, and it would also make me feel like, because I always wanted to be something special, like not just a number, like when I do speed dating or something and they're like, oh, it's for men this age to that age, and I'm like, but I don't want to be somebody who's that age. I want to be me. Like people wouldn't go, oh, are you interested in dating my friend Robert Downey Jr.? He's 52 or whatever. No, it's like, no, that's him. You'd know who he was, and it would be based on his personality, not just on or if you were being cast for a commercial, we need a dad this age. It's like, I don't want to be that. I want to be a known name. But you got to work at that kind of stuff and work at it for your whole life and try to get it. You can't just sit there and go, I'm going to be famous one day.
Right.
That's all very interesting. So, I mean, I guess you did it. Did you like LA or New York better?
I liked elements of both. New York was a little bit easier to get around. I love the subway in comparison to the car, and just kind of the community there is a little bit just more. It's just more interesting. It's not an industry town like LA, so you just meet a lot of different types of people in New York, and you get great material. It's like the best place. You just sit on a bench for 20 minutes and hear and see the craziest stuff all the time.
Yeah, that's why you can have an Instagram, Humans of New York, where it's literally I'm just going up to people in the street. It boggles me because it's so expensive to live there, and Manhattan's an island, but everybody's there. But I'm wondering, how are people getting there? Is people like in the area and then they come into the island and then they leave at the end of the day? Like, who are these humans of New York? I always wonder.
All of it. Yeah, all of it. The boroughs and the bridge and tunnel people, they call it. There's people all over New Jersey, Staten Island, Long Island, Queens, Brooklyn.
Speaking of famous people, I met Leslie Nielsen a few years ago. Nice. I had an idea for a commercial I was writing where he would be walking through all this dangerous stuff, but be oblivious because he had a bodyguard who was protecting him, and that represented visas, security features protecting you. And I said it would be great to have. So at that point, he was living in Miami, so we shot the commercial there. And I was asking him. I think I probably asked him the exact same question. He's like, you know what? He said he liked New York a lot better because in LA, the only people the only friends you'd see would be like if your cars happen to be at the stoplight at the same time, you'd wave to them. But in New York, you could walk down and have a drink at the pub, and it's your friends there and stuff.
Exactly.
So I don't know. And then I was talking to somebody connected me with. Is it David Steinberg? Do you know that name?
Yeah, he's a writer.
Maybe that's not him. It was like a guy who used to fill in for Johnny Carson in the 70s, like a big comedian.
Okay.
And then now he hosts some kind of show where he's interviewing.
Right, the Showtime show where he interviews like people. I think.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
So somebody gave me his number, and I was in LA. I called him, and he gave me like 2 advice things. Well, no, I guess 1. I was complaining like, oh, I watched this. I'm realizing I think I told this story in yesterday's podcast, but whatever. I'm watching this script girl who does shows from LA where she talks about what scripts are in development, but she's got crazy cleavage, and so she gets lots of views because of that. And he's like, well, just get a cute girl to sit beside you or whatever. So that was his big advice. I was like, oh, that's smart. And then I talked to his wife briefly, and I was like, I can't decide between LA and New York. She's like, oh, well, we've got a home in both, and we just fly back and forth. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that would be the best to feel like we feel like some. Yeah, so it's all. I'll see how I can swing it. When I was in Florida last month, I was talking to a company that they pay you to drive cars, like either back to Canada or we need somebody to drive a car from LA to New York or whatever. And I'm like, oh, maybe that'll be how I'll swing it. So I'll just drive cars back and forth. And
that could be that would be a cool thing to document and do stuff on the road.
Yeah, it's not a bad. He's like, I got a cool sports car you can drive. I'm like, cool. At the time, I was like, nah, you know what? The pandemic, it's 4 days of driving through what the hell, I was like, I got to just get on a plane. So I just left. But I'd be interested in that in the future. And they give you enough money basically to cover some best Westerns along the way kind of thing. But yeah, it could be kind of fun. Like, I mean, because now it used to be like, oh, what are you going to do in the car? It's kind of boring. But, well, first of all, you could literally be recording a call like this while you're driving, and that could be your podcast. Or just be listening to podcasts.
Totally.
What was that sound? I just heard a sound.
It was some stupid notification on my computer.
Oh, that's all right. It's probably
technology heckles.
Oh, I know. It's funny how all these sounds. I don't know, like the call of when it was you were Skype calling me. It's like do 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 or whatever that sound is. I'm starting to hate that. I don't
love that sound. Yeah, they need to refresh that soundtrack. It's a weird. I'm not a big fan of the Skype call sound.
Okay, because I was wondering just when you called, I'm like, I shouldn't be like I'm looking forward to this call. I shouldn't be bad. It's not like because I hate the iPhone alarm too, like doo doo or whatever that is with the little xylophone, because that always means. It's 5 a.m. and I'm getting up for a flight or something. I don't want to hear that alarm sound, but I shouldn't not like the Skype sound. It's exciting. Somebody's Skype calling me. Like I'm not getting Skype calls from people I don't want to. It's not crank calls. It's not like try this and buy my insurance. It's people I want to talk to. So yeah, so I think it's just a badly designed sound. We got to talk to who owns Skype. I feel like it's Elon Musk or something.
I think it's Microsoft now. And they're really letting us down. I think, you really got to ease people into more like motivating, uplifting ringtone, I think.
Yeah, it should be exciting that you're about to have this call. So that board in the background, it's got pink squares. Is that like, it kind of looks like, like if you were a screenwriter, like you'd be moving the Post-it notes around to try to organize your thing, but is that just like each one's a joke or?
No, that's 100% what it is. I'm outlining a script, a feature I want to write. It's like a thriller comedy, and I just started. Yeah, those are all scenes and ideas, and you knocked out the park.
Oh my
exactly
God!
What you thought it was. That's what it is.
Huh? Yeah, because I thought you said, the board in the back. You were talking about. There's a whiteboard behind you for the comedy.
The whiteboard, yeah, I put other stuff on there. Yeah.
Wow, is that what's beside the microphone? Is that like a keyboard? What is that?
Yeah, that's a keyboard. It's just 5 octave. It's a small one, but I mess around on it. I'm no pianist, but I can play like minuet.
So you're just like every cliche of like a comedian artist, like, oh yeah, a screenwriter. I'm moving my Post-it notes around. Like I know that's what you're supposed to do, but I've never done it. And I admire people that do it, but I'm like, I'm ever going to sit down and do my Post-it notes and write on my. I think it helps. Do you find it helps to have a wife? I feel like if I had a wife, I would be feeling comfortable and grounded, and I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to go in with my Post-it notes. But when you don't have a wife, you feel like, oh my God, I should be meeting someone. My life has no meaning. Why am I sitting alone putting Post-it notes on the wall? Did that change? Yeah. Yeah,
no, I would agree with that. I'm much better outlining things post-marriage than pre-marriage. So.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend years ago that I met, and we wound up shooting a short film together, and she was a screenwriter, and I feel like I could have worked on a screenplay, like, I don't know, she'd be working on hers, and I'd write mine, and that would give me comfort, but I find that, yeah, it's going to be hard to, I just feel like, that's why I like doing calls like this, because I feel like I need to be talking to someone. I can't sit alone, and, I mean, some people can do that. I think I was seeing a talk by, who's the guy that wrote Crash?
Paul Haggis.
Yeah, he was saying that he walks to Starbucks every day and works on a screenplay. And I think that takes a certain type of person. Like I did write a screenplay. I took a screenwriting class in a college 10, 15 years ago. And I wound up entering my first draft into a contest in LA, and it wound up winning. And I was sent to all these producers, but I've never sat down to adjust the notes that the producer in New York gave me and stuff. Cause I don't know. I found it very lonely. Like it's really a certain type of personality that can sit there and work on it. And,
yeah. Well, that's why I like the balance, because it is a lonely craft and it's a lot of rewriting, but that's why stand-up is great. You can write a joke that morning and try it that night.
Yeah, and that's what I enjoyed. I was running for the Green Party in the election in October, and I decided, you know what, I want to write, I don't know, some jokes about my campaign. So I just wrote some jokes about the election, and I don't know, spent about an hour just banging them out, and then I walked over and they let me on stage, the open stage. I'm like, wow, and it went well. People were laughing, so I like that immediate gratification. Even the first 2 minutes was literally just before I got to my jokes. I was just talking and making things up, and it sounded like part of my routine because I'm so naturally hilarious off the cuff. But so I guess it's good to have a balance. Like if you can say, okay, for an hour a day, I'm working on my screenplay, but also I'm going to write some jokes and I'm going to get that immediate gratification. Boom, boom, boom. And then, I'll do my podcast. Now I get to talk to somebody.
Exactly. And they feed into each other. I feel like my writing got better after I did stand up, because you focus so much on joke writing and stand up, and you kind of forget how to trim fat if you're just writing long form screenplays.
Yeah, you just sort of went. I mean, you can sort of hear what things sound like out loud, and you get the rhythm of, okay, here's something needs to happen. You realize, like if you're on stand up and you're just rambling for 3 minutes, kind of like this podcast, is what I do. But you're going to realize that people are going to get bored. So so I'm sure that definitely helps. That's very cool. So have you ever finished a screenplay? Like, what would be the goal with that? You're Mr. LA. Like, you got all the connections that you'd be like, here's my screenplay.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've got a few. I mean, I wrote a Christmas movie a few years ago that I had an agent for. I wrote a buddy comedy recently that I'm getting out there. And then I wrote a movie over like the holiday break about a comedian in New York that I'm like doing a final polish on. So this is just like a side distraction of like a future project when I got bored of working on the other stuff. But yeah, it's just like a constant grind of just creating stuff and getting it out there and just keeping things on different burners.
Yeah. It's kind of like people say you gotta have, Ty Lopez, this entrepreneur guy, is always, you gotta have multiple streams of income. Every millionaire has 9 streams of income or something. So this is kind of like, you got different, and that's the thing. So a lot of people tell me the opposite. You should just focus. Why are you working on somebody and you're not getting anything done? You got to have like one thing. Do your stand-up or do your cartoon strip or whatever. But I don't know. I think people like that don't necessarily understand the multi-hyphenate, multi-passionate creative. It's
well, and that's what the pandemic has shown us. If you just do stand-up, you're really exposed in these kind of situations, and that's like the whole Laugh Dealers is the name of our platform. That's like the whole concept, is that you can do 9 different things at once. It might all be related to what you're good at, but it's you should be able to have different opportunities to get yourself out there.
That's good. Okay, yeah. So it's it definitely helps in terms of just having it's like not putting all your eggs in one basket. You can do different things, but also I think it's like you were saying, it different creative things feeds off. It helps you think in different ways, and I think, do you know Marie Forleo? She's kind of like a Tony Robbins business entrepreneur type. Yeah. She talks about multi-passionate people and how you could combine. If you have a couple of different things you do, then that becomes your unique thing. You're the comedian screenwriter, I don't know, maybe you're whatever 2 things are you could combine. Like that becomes something unique to you, kind of thing. So that's why it's good to have different things. Is there like scene, is there a comedy scene in Boston? You go and do the comedy clubs there, kind of thing?
I'm outside. I'm in Western Mass, so it's like Boston's the nearest city, but we have a pretty artistic area here. We're near Mass MoCA Museum, which is a huge contemporary art museum. So there's a lot of performance art around here. There's Albany, New York, there's a lot of comedy around there. So there's like a whole circuit in the sort of the tri-state area.
The tri-state area. I always picture there was this series of MTV ads where Alec Baldwin narrated them, and it was something about like an insurance salesman, and he's the best insurance salesman in the tri-state area or something. I don't even know what the tri-state area is, but it's always...
I mean, the real tri-state area is like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, I think. But my tri-state area is like Mass, New York, Vermont.
Oh, so any kind of 3 states could be a tri-state area.
Technically, if the borders match up.
Oh my gosh! But I think you've made up your... I think when people say tri-state area, they mean that tri-state area. Interesting. Yes. Okay. And so when you do your stand-up, do you film it and then throw it on YouTube, or it's more to be in the club?
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep it pretty fresh and up. Like, I try to get rid of old stuff. You know how it is when you see old clips of yourself from like 5-6 years ago. It's not necessarily as good as you are now. So, I mean, I put stuff up. I try to just always get good tapes for festivals, and I did a run in Colorado of like 10 shows in 9 days before the pandemic, and got a lot of good tape from that. And just kind of always trying to... That's like the comedian's like nightmare, is trying to get a good new tape like constantly.
Yeah, well, that's what they say too. Like, you know, it used to be you could sort of travel around and do the same routine for a couple of years or whatever, but now if somebody films it or it's on YouTube, everybody's seen it, so you can't do the same act.
They've seen it if you did it on the Tonight Show or something, but if you did it at a Chuckle Hut in Delaware, and only 200 people viewed it on YouTube, like the material doesn't get burned in that same way.
Yeah, I guess if you're at the point where everybody has seen your act, then you're doing okay. That's not a bad problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, like, really famous people get sort of criticized for recycling the stuff, but even if you're just up and coming and did one late night spot, you'll still see those people doing that 5 minutes as part of their headlining act, on the road.
Yeah, for sure. I would think so. Like, I remember when I was doing amateur night in Ottawa for, a long time ago, I'd see somebody's act, like talk about a local restaurant or whatever. There's a restaurant called the Crab Shack in Ottawa, and I thought it was a STD clinic or whatever. And then I'd see him doing that joke like 5 years later in Toronto. I'm like, okay, yeah, people do the same thing, because I've never done stand-up enough that I've repeated anything. I usually just try to write a bunch of new jokes, which isn't, I mean, for me, that keeps it fresh, but it's also not the way to keep getting better. Like, I think what people don't realize is that it'll take Louis C.K. a year to write that hour or whatever. It's not just you're banging this stuff out. I mean, there's a lot of sort of amateur night people that, they'll just bang out stuff every night or whatever, but that's not gonna be like a polished, perfect Seinfeld act.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a craft. You definitely start learning that it's better to do the old stuff for you, because it'll be new for them and better for them. So
yeah, and then it's really a finely honed kind of thing. And if it's good, like, I'd want to see a comedian do that thing again. Like, it still sticks in my head, some comedian I saw in Canada that was talking about how the fluoride at dentist doesn't taste like strawberries. Like, strawberry, that's not strawberry. Maybe if you put the strawberries in a bag of piss or something. Like, does that make me now explicit content on Apple Podcasts? I don't know. I shouldn't have said that.
You're good on piss.
Yeah, I think I'm good. Actually, yeah, and I think I got in trouble once when I was hosting my cable shows like 10 years ago. I said I was like, I'm pissed off or something, and they said, oh, you can't say things like that. And I was like, what? Like, I said, I was in Ottawa, and some people showed me some VHS tapes of this guy, Tom Green, and he's like chasing the porn magazine down the street. And they're like, well, porn's a real word. It's in the dictionary. I'm like, what are we talking about? But yeah, that'd be cool to have Tom Green on my show. Like, he was just on the Joe Rogan show.
Oh.
Is Joe Rogan a big, like in LA, is everybody's like, oh yeah, Joe Rogan, he's a good, he's successful? Yeah, no,
he's a known quantity.
Yeah, he's the only thing, like, I'm trying to think of people I could model my career after, or like I'm trying to picture people that are doing what I think I would want to do, so I've got something to aim at, and I think, okay, he does stand up, but he also could have anybody on his talk show. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Or Mark Maron has Obama in his garage and Jennifer Lawrence. I'm like, that would be good. I think I'd be happy with that. I think I'd be happy if I was Bill Maher sort of doing a political show. Because I keep trying to picture myself like, if I was sitting in the Simpsons writing room, I don't think I'd be fully happy. I wouldn't be fully content. I'd still want to be sort of known. What do you think my stage name should be? Because, like, my real name is Josh Rachlis, hard to spell, so I've been going by Celebrity Josh because I interview celebrities. But some people tell me, it sounds like you're arrogant. You're calling yourself a celebrity. I'm like, well, whatever. but also I will. But then, okay, so I feel like if you're a rapper, you can be like, I'm Ice-T, I'm Snoop Dogg. But if you're a comedian, do you think you sound like an idiot? Like if my name was Celebrity. Next up, we got Charlie Nadler, and then we got Celebrity Josh. Like, do I sound like an idiot?
No, I think it's you're creating a brand for yourself. So if it's online content, like, Celebrity Josh has a much better ring to it than just a name.
Yeah, so online it's different. PewDiePie is good. I'm just afraid, like, what name do you choose, right? Because, like, in my head, I still might play James Bond one day. And you can have Daniel Craig is 007, but would you say Celebrity Josh? It doesn't work, right?
Celebrity Josh is just a kid in the middle of nowhere. Like, yeah. You have to play something very specific if it's Celebrity Josh getting the title.
Yeah, like it's kind of like, I'm the Charlie Brown of reality. So I'd need a different name. So I'm trying to think of some name that kind of works for everything. Because Ice-T, like Lady Gaga, she's still winning Oscars as Lady Gaga.
Yeah, true.
And then this morning I was like, maybe my name should be Lady Haha. maybe not. Maybe Lady Haha wouldn't play James Bond. Tom Cruise works for, probably not.
Yeah, I don't think James Bond, but you never know. Could be maybe in the reboot.
Yeah, that's true, right? Because 007's now a black woman or something. So, yeah, exactly. And I'm clearly a black woman. I don't know. I don't know where this is going. I don't know. I guess, but how I'm really studying everybody's stage names. You know how Woody Allen got his name?
No.
Well, his real name is Alan Konigsberg. So he probably got Woody he likes jazz players, so he probably got that from Woody somebody.
Yeah.
And then Drake is just Aubrey Singer's middle name, and Cher is actually just her real name, like Cheryl or something. Madonna was her real name. So a lot of these people are just lucky to have cool names like Zendaya that they can just call. I'm just going to call myself my first name.
Yeah.
But there's enough bald Jewish comedians named Josh that I can't really own that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Same with Charlie. There's a lot of Charlies out there.
Yeah, but Charlie's a good name. Well, that's the problem. See, this is my problem with names. It's like, if there's so many people with the same name, what's the point in having a name? Like, you might as well, like, if why John? Like, if everybody's named John, what's the point in John? Just not even bother with that. I feel like we should all have a unique name.
People like branding. They like pedigrees. They like Crest toothpaste and Adidas shoes. So it's like Josh and Charlie is like Adidas and
Right. It's something.
Hershey's.
And Hershey's, yeah. It just becomes is that what you said, Hershey's?
Yeah.
My dad and I stopped at the Hershey's factory when we were driving to Florida a few years ago. They got good stuff.
Yeah, no, they're a pretty good product for a big, evil company.
Yeah. Although I was in Costa Rica a few years ago, and I was on a farm, and they actually make the chocolate like right in front of you and grind the beans, and then they give you some hot chocolate. I'm like, that's different. That's good stuff.
That is good stuff.
All right. So what do you think? We're at 43 minutes. You're a comedian writer. Like, is it time to wrap it up, or do we drag this on?
No, I mean, I feel pretty good. I gotta figure out dinner. Pandemic Wednesday dinner.
Oh, that's right. You got a wife and everything. Yeah, and this is actually the time that either I'd go for a walk just before dinner or after dinner. My new thing is that I want to film a little video on my nightly walks,
nice.
And then I originally had the idea last week. It's like, you know what? There's all these Jewish singles Facebook groups and digital nomad singles groups, and I could make a little. And people ask questions like, "Hey, what do you think of this about dating or something?" I'm like, I'm going to introduce myself in videos. So I'm like, I make a little video saying, "Hey, do you guys like dogs? I'm walking my aunt's dog." And then I thought, you know what? This could be content for my Instagram anyways. Why not just a general question like, "Do you guys like dogs?" And it's kind of like a talk show, right? And,
yeah, I like that.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go out and do that, and you'll see that. All right. And hopefully we can chat again, because you're kind of, the me that I wish I was. So it's inspiring to see what you're up to. Even your room. Is that your bedroom? Like, what is that?
No, this is an office. This is just an office, man. But yeah, I got the tripod back there, the crazy cat calendar. There's a lot going on.
And what's that round thing behind you, like with the black circle and the white plastic thing with the dots just behind your shoulder there?
Oh, this thing right here?
Yeah.
That's a litter box for our cat.
Oh, you got a cat too. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, you're living the dream. All right. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll be on again. And do you have? And is there like, you want to plug your website, or where should people go to find you?
Yeah, it's laughdealers.com.
I like it. It sounds almost illicit.
Yeah, it is.
I was thinking in camp they used to call me narc because like I was the only one not drinking and stuff, and they thought he must be a narc, and I'm like, that'd be a cool stage name for myself.
Narc Josh. That's
Narc Josh. Well, I was gonna lose the Josh. I was gonna be narc, like ninja, like Sting, like Pink.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
Narc.com is taken though, so we'll see. All right, cool. All right, we'll check you out there, and thanks, Charlie Nadler. Have a good dinner with the wife. Say hi for me and ask if she has a sister for me.
All right, thanks, Celebrity Josh. I'll see you soon, buddy. Bye.
Bye.